Welcome back to the Naxxramas Raid Guide. In this video I'll be covering Sapphiron, the second to last boss in Naxxramas, and the first thing you'll see upon entering Frostworm Lair. My name's Ciderhelm from TankSpot, and like the rest of these videos, these are intended for full guilds and raids rather than just for tanks, so feel free to repost them to your guild forums. Now, normally he'd be in the center of the room where that kind of light blue circle is over to the left of me. But because of his enormous aggro radius, which if you rewind this and you look again, he has a huge aggro radius, and one of my raid members did actually barely step across that threshold before I did. So it got him out of position, but here I'm not too concerned. I already know that Party 1 and Party 1, which is more important, they already know where they're supposed to be. Party 1 will always be to the left, Party 2 will always be to the right, and they understand the mechanics of the dragon, which means you never stay in the front where there are cleaves, and you never stay in the back where the tail can do a tail whip or a tail swipe. And here he's going to be going into an air phase, so I'm going to steer off subject here and let him go there and show off one of his other core mechanics, and I'll jump back into some of these hitbox mechanics here. He casts an ice block on 2 players throughout this time. The ice block does deal damage. You need to make sure people are topped off so they can survive it, because if they don't, the ice block fails. And this is why it's important. Everybody in your raid needs to get behind one of these 2 ice blocks, because when he drops that frost bomb, anybody who's not behind it will instantly die no matter what. He's landed. Okay, and now I'll get into some more of these mechanics. What I was talking about the hitbox, when his aggro radius, it's tied into his hitbox. His hitbox is enormous. You can be pretty far away and deal melee damage. That's kind of critical. It allows you to do some melee damage while he's up in the air. But it is kind of critical to this encounter that you be able to move, and partly because of this blizzard you see coming over me right now. And I'm doing a little bit to try to avoid it, but I know the healers are already focused on me. His hitbox is large. His aggro radius is large. These are good things, except they also tie into his cleave range being large. The cleave is a very, very bad thing. Anybody who's anywhere near it will die instantly. There's almost no way anybody's going to be geared correctly to survive it, except obviously the tank who is going to be taking it, which is a good thing. So as far as avoiding the cleave, where it's most important to worry about the range of his cleave is when you're actually entering the room. A lot of people their first few times going in here are going to go straight to the right or left side when they're entering the room. Keep watching these frost blocks, by the way, as we go through this. A lot of people are going to go straight to the left or right side depending on what party they're in, or if everybody, depending on your strategy, if everybody's going to the left side, for instance, it goes that way too. But you can't do that when you're entering the room. After you initially pull him your first time in the instance, where he's actually a kind of a pile of bones and he forms up in front of you, it's a pretty cool animation. Anytime you pull him thereafter, he will aggro. Before you are actually close enough to pull him and tank him, he will start walking towards the raid. And if the tank doesn't charge up there, and if someone's trying to run over to the left and right side, they will almost definitely be cleaved. Another way of explaining this is to just say, if you are going to the right or left side as one of these, as someone in the raid, other than the tank, make sure you're hugging the right and left walls as you enter the room. Hug it, go all the way around, and then circle back in and intercept there. Okay, one of the major abilities that he's using here is a Drain Life. This is a curse, it can be decursed, it needs to be decursed because it deals a lot of damage. The damage is everything about this encounter. The tank takes a lot of damage, but so does the rest of the raid. The raid is constantly taking a Frost Aura. The Frost Aura can be partially resisted. It's a small amount of damage, but it's always up. So you want to make sure that you have a Frost Resistance Aura or some kind of Frost Resistance buff in your raid. Unless you're going for the achievement, in which case that's not such a big deal. Again, watch these ice blocks. Watch how they form. You want to make sure everybody's topped off during this phase, which is one of the things where the Frost Aura makes that more difficult. Immediately get behind these. So you've got the Frost Aura, which is consistently dealing damage here, but you also have a Blizzard. The Blizzard will slow, which makes it quite a bit more dangerous, especially if you're slowed going into that air phase, and the Blizzard does remain up during the air phase. If you're slowed going up there and you can't get behind one of those ice blocks, you die. If you die, the raid has a much, much lower chance of actually succeeding at this encounter. So those are something you always want to keep an eye out for. As a tank, you can move back and forth like you'll see me doing here. You can actually move safely back and forth. You cannot move side to side. If you try to move side to side to avoid a blizzard, you have a good chance of misjudging how far you can move, and then you're going to wind up cleaving someone. Again, his cleave is pretty substantially large in terms of range. So you've got the blizzard you have to worry about. That is additional significant damage. It's also a slow. It's not a good thing. Melee are going to want to be split up on the left and right side in terms of your party composition to make that work the best. The next thing you're going to want to worry about is actually, I'll go ahead and explain what he's doing when he's up in the air here. When he's up in the air, these ice blocks he's casting at people, they deal a significant amount of damage, which is, the people need to be topped off, as I've already said. That damage will not just go to the person that it hits. It will go to anyone within, I think, like 5 or 10 yards of that person. So you don't want everyone to group up right away. You don't want to get in a tight group unless you know that you can heal through that. So we just had someone die there. So you want to make sure that that's not something where everybody's getting in tight or people are running too close together. But at the same time, you do need to have people generally on one side of the room during that phase, so none of these ice blocks are going to be too far. And if the first ice block goes off and you see that it's on like the farthest person away from you as possible, you need to start moving towards it, because you can't guarantee that the next ice block is going to be closer. So everybody in the raid needs to be aware. You do need to start inching towards it. If it's really far away and you've got to run next to someone, yeah, run next to someone. It is more important that you make sure you get there than it is to be safe about not hitting other people. So there's kind of a priority system there. The other thing you need to make sure on is his ice blocks can bug. If they land anywhere that is not on this exactly flat surface of the room, particularly if it lands on the back kind of snow flow that goes over into the room as you enter the room. If any of your raiders get hit with the ice block there, do not attempt to use that ice block. Everybody needs to get away from it. If it's not on flat ground, there is a very, very, very high chance that it will bug out, and anybody who believes they're in LOS of it will just die outright. So you'll lose half your raid there, and that's not a pleasant experience. You got a nice heal coming up here. Anyway, this encounter is all about damage. It's all about handling a lot of damage. It's all about the healers and what they're going to do. Make sure you keep your debuffs up. Make sure everything's going well here. When he gets to his last 10%, he'll no longer do air phases. This is something that was in the original encounter, but it's designed so that he doesn't, as far as we can tell, it's designed so he doesn't die in the air, in which case you couldn't loot him. So the last 10%, he will no longer go up in the air. You don't have to worry about it. You just have to kill him. Thank you for watching the Sapphiron video guide. If you have any questions, regardless of what class you are, please feel free to stop by and register at TankSpot.com and go ahead and ask questions in the Project Marmot forums.